What's up guys, it is your boy NCSO7 doing another review video, and today we're finally going to be covering Paper Mario the Origami King. It's been a while since this game came out. It's finally beaten it like a week ago, and yeah, I figured that I may as well talk about it. And I'm not entirely sure on how some Paper Mario fans will take my video, but I'm gonna do it anyways. So let's just get into this without further delay. So first off, we'll start with the presentation of this game. Now, this Paper Mario game is not necessarily like the other Paper Mario games in the past. It's not like the N64 one or Thousand Year Door, Super Paper Mario or anything like that. This game is different. It uses a lot of stuff from some of the other games, like specifically Color Splash when it comes to the style of the game. However, the battling, which we will get into later in the video, has a different setup to that of the other games. But we'll get into battling later. But I need to just say this right now. Man, this game has some great graphics. Not just like the style of the game, but just how it looks. Everything is made out of paper, which some people might think of as a negative thing, because some people think that like the paper kind of overtook the idea of the story. But honestly, I think that the aesthetic looks really nice and makes Paper Mario Origami King look really good. And yes, I know Color Splash had this too, but this isn't about Color Splash. This is about Origami King. Has really great visual design, and not only that, but the game runs pretty well at a decent frame rate, and also looks really good. I'm not entirely sure on the performance rates in handheld mode, as I haven't played that much in there, but from what I have played, it seems to work pretty well. So presentation wise, really good. Now we've got the story. Now this is probably the big negative I do have with this game, and I'm not going to spoil it or anything like that, even though there's not that much to spoil anyways. Essentially, this guy called King Ali is this D-bag who just wants the entire world to be origami. Instead of origami and paper creatures coexisting, instead he just wants to take over the entire world and just make it completely origami, which is basically what he does. And you basically gotta stop him by destroying these streamer things. And yeah. Now, there is a little bit more to it than that, but not a lot. And this is the one thing I can definitively say that I do kind of have a bit of an issue with. I feel like the story is kind of meh. Like, at the start of the game, they have the whole scene with Princess Peach asking you, like, if you want to forfeit yourself to the origami and all that stuff. Like, it gives off this really creepy vibe, but you can't actually forfeit yourself. She'll still drop you into a prison. And yeah, and they don't really ever go that much further with the scary tone. Hate to spoil this, but they don't really use that scary tone at all throughout the rest of the game. They really don't. Like, never. So that's a downer. But there's also the fact that the story isn't really that engaging after a while. After a while, it just doesn't really, I don't know, just really doesn't feel that engaging. It's a pretty basic plot, all things considered, and I feel that the plot should be better. And this is the only real part of the game that I do have a legitimate problem with. The story's okay enough for the game, but it could have been so much more. They could have expanded on these characters a lot more. It's not to say they don't expand upon some of the characters, as some of the characters do have some depth, but I feel like this could still do a lot with the overall plot. But it's whatever. So story-wise, it's passable, but they could have done so much more with it. And now onto the gameplay, and I'm pretty sure that this might be a bit more of a hot take. I think the gameplay in the game is pretty good. Now, in terms of the overworld gameplay, you know, not the battling and stuff like that, basically it's like the other Paper Mario games. You essentially have to destroy these streamers, like I mentioned before, and you essentially progress through these worlds doing various puzzle solving and whatnot to get to those things. But along the way, you'll also meet various party members. Now, they do not function the same as that of like party members in like other RPGs or even just the earlier Paper Mario games. You can't switch them out. They only really stick with you for one area, and I'll kind of touch this a little bit later, but essentially when they follow you around, they actually can help you in battle. And now it's time to get into the battling. Now the battling in this game isn't really necessarily the same thing as other RPGs. It's more of a puzzle game where you gotta line up enemies in a column, or you get them into like a small group so you can attack them with your hammer. You essentially have 2 attacks, but the thing about it is that unlike Sticker Star and Color Splash, you will never be running out of attacks. While you can purchase special attacks like shiny boots for extra damage, you will always have normal boots and a normal hammer. So you can always do those attacks. And that's one plus for this game. No disposable attacks aside from the special ones. You'll always have something you can use. Although this does get into one big issue that we'll touch into just a second, but I may as well address the question, what do the party members do? Essentially, they'll deal a little bit of damage to some of the enemies. They start, and they're only temporary, so you can't switch them out. They'll only be temporary. And most of the time, they don't really do that much damage until later. They get better and better throughout the game, so yeah. But, of course, we gotta bring up the elephant in the room. And you've probably seen it by this point, when you battle, and after you battle, you do not get experience points. Unlike other RPGs where you get experience, which exists with a leveling system, so when you level up, you get stronger, you get more health and stuff like that. Origami King does not do this. Just like the previous 2 titles, it does not do this. And a lot of people are turned off by this, and I can definitely see why. No experience definitely makes battling pretty worthless. Now, battling, what do you get? You get coins. But the thing is, the game throws coins at you like crazy. And I'm talking like they'll give you thousands of coins. Now, are the coins useful? Well, yes, they are. There are specific times in the game where you will have to pay a certain amount of money. Such as one time in the Red Stream where you have to pay like $10,000 for a part for something. I don't remember, but essentially they are used sometimes. And you can also buy the various items and badges and stuff like that for the other stuff as well with coins. But it's not like you're ever gonna really run out, because you get so many coins from battle that it's not even that big of a deal. Let alone the overworld, because there's these various areas where there's this like weird thing, like black emptiness, and essentially you use the confetti, which is another new thing they have, is confetti, and essentially if you can cover these holes, they'll actually give you a lot of coins. Sometimes they'll give you like 100 coins for some of these things. Yeah, the game definitely throws coins at you quite a bunch. Now, I do know why people may not be happy with the experience system, but to be honest, I honestly don't think it's the biggest deal. Because this game isn't necessarily an RPG, and I think a lot of people are missing that idea. This is not intended to be an RPG. This is intended to be an action-adventure game. Like, think about this. Mario Odyssey, that game, when you defeat enemies, you get coins out of it. The coins are not really that useful in the game, but everybody loves Odyssey, so why don't people give Origami King more of that? More chance. But it's whatever. But overall, gameplay-wise, it's pretty decent. It's really fun. The battling's really fun. You essentially slide rings around. It does depend on what kind of fight you're doing, as with normal enemies, you'll have to line them up, but in boss fights, you'll actually have to get yourself to the boss. And I'll be honest, the boss fights are pretty good, so no real issues there. So overall, gameplay-wise, I'd say it's pretty fun, in my opinion. But of course, gameplay doesn't really matter much if the controls suck, and thankfully, Paper Mario the Origami King has great controls. Everything works well, except for one thing, the motion controls. See, there's these various panels you could step on where you get these, I believe they're called 1000 fold arms, and they essentially, you can grab and pull on stuff. Now, these are controlled with motion controls, and they're not very good. Using the Pro Controller for the first time was not fun. They were not really that responsive, and they're not very good. Thankfully, you can turn off the motion controls in the options menu, so thank God for that feature, because oh boy. But overall, control-wise, the game's fine. There's nothing to really say. Next, we got the amount of content. Now, this game costs $60, and I'd say that it took me around like maybe 20 hours to beat the game, which isn't too bad. It's fairly standard for a game, honestly, from Nintendo at this point. The game's fine enough. It's only the main game, but there are a lot of things you can do. You can 100% the game, although there are various things that I've heard of that essentially do kind of make the game impossible to 100%, but that's an entire other can of worms. Hopefully they'll patch that out in the soon future. But essentially, there's a lot to this game. If you want to just beat the game, it'll probably take you around 15 hours, which isn't too bad. But if you want to 100% the game, well, I don't know. I haven't 100%ed it yet. I might, I'm not sure I will, but yeah. Overall, I'd say in terms of content, I'd say the game's probably worth $60. I'd say it's probably more worth $40, but it's really whatever. And then the soundtrack. Now, I think the soundtrack to Origami King is good. There are some good tracks in there, but I also feel like there are some tracks that are kind of forgettable, to be completely honest. But it's not a bad soundtrack at all. I think it's alright. It's alright. It's passable. It's fine. Don't have much of a problem with it. And now, finally, my final thoughts. I will be fully honest, I think this is a pretty good game. I know that a lot of Paper Mario purists will scoff at this game and just be like, this sucks, it's not like 64,000 your door. But here's the thing, appreciate it for what it is on its own. If you can get past the fact that it's different and actually play the game for yourself, you'll realize that it's a really fun and gorgeous game. And overall, it was a pretty fun game all the way through. So on my scale of 0 to 10, I'm going to be giving Paper Mario the Origami King an 8.5 out of 10. But that's my thoughts. What is your thoughts? Maybe you like the game a lot, or maybe you hate the game. I don't know. Let me know in the comments below. And yeah, so anyways, have a good day. I don't really know what I was gonna try to make a pun, but just have a good day. Enjoy yourself.
It's showtime! Did you enjoy the show? Well, time for the highlights.